And one of those is that we have Cottonwood Heights along Creek Road, we have Sandy along Creek Road, and we have unincorporated Salt Lake County along Creek Road. And when you have a lot of people to try to get together to agree on things, there's kind of a principle that I remembered from my college days, and that's that the more people you have to bring to agreement, the less likely you are to get to agreement. And so, long before the legislature passed this bill, which we'll talk about, I thought, you know, we probably need to work on maybe thinking about getting these unincorporated areas into a city so that at least we eliminate one variable, and then we can coordinate with maybe just one other city to get some things done. Well, this bill that was passed in the legislature, I think, had many motives. One in particular is that the county has a municipal services district. And just give you a quick example. Unified Police Department used to serve 350,000 people and unincorporated citizens. That has dwindled to 11,000. Now, there are some cities that still contract with UPD, but you, my good neighbors to the south, sometimes if you need services, that police officer may be clear over in Magna, and they have to come to you. And so the county recognized that there's kind of a problem in the way it's delivering its services because all of these areas have gone into cities over the past few years. And it was the state legislature who passed law to, I think, that Granite, I don't know if you're familiar with the Granite community, but there's just little tiny pockets everywhere of unincorporated Salt Lake County, and they're part of this Granite community. And so the legislature passed a bill and said, we probably can do more with our taxpayer dollars, and let's eliminate all of these islands. And essentially, I think why you're here is that if you don't choose the city to annex into, you will automatically be annexed into the nearest adjacent city. Actually, the largest adjacent city is what it says. And so that would be Sandy. Well, one of the reasons I'm here, and I don't know all of you, but so many of you, I know you're my neighbors. You're just south of Creek Road. And I believe so wholeheartedly in community that I just wanted to reach out to you and give you a choice. And I also want to let you know that in 2014, Cottonwood Heights and Sandy City, that we have a resolution that the then mayor and council members signed that said we're going to kind of have some rules of the road if these islands want to incorporate. And one of the things it says in that resolution is that both cities support the principle of self-determination. So we want you to decide. And my only motive here tonight is to give you the information to decide what's best for you and to think about the tax dollars that you're spending and what kind of services you're getting. So before I go on too much longer, I want to introduce some people who are here, and I'm grateful for them being here. First is Tim Tingy. He's our city manager, and he's going to give a presentation. Next to him is Chief Robbie Rousseau, the police department. He was the one who was here from day one when Cottonwood Heights decided to have a police department. Robbie is the reason that we have what we have today, so grateful for him being here. Next to him is Officer McHugh, but you're Lieutenant or? Lieutenant McHugh. Grateful to have him here. And then Matt Shipp is here, and he's our Public Works Director. Now, we're up here just kind of in a panel because we want, when you get to the question and answer session, we want you to be able to reach out to any one of us. So Tim will be doing a presentation, and then Robbie, and I'll tell you about the format here in just a minute. I want to also let you know that Councilmember Ellen Burrell, wave, is here. She's from District 4. I used to live in District 4, right off of Wasatch Road and so Boulevard. So we know all of the traffic problems and the problems there. But also that's why I come down Creek Road. To be able to go to Target, you gotta go to Target. So I've been familiar with the Creek Road challenges since we moved here in 2005 when the city was incorporated. So I want to just tell you quickly about the format. Oh, no, there's one other thing I wanted to mention to you, and there's been some confusion. We're talking about annexing into Cottonwood Heights tonight, not annexing into the special district, the taxing district of Cottonwood Heights Rec Center. So if you do join Cottonwood Heights City, that doesn't mean that you then are joining the taxing district. that district that supports the rec center preceded the city. And so even I'm not in that taxing district. And to join that recreation center, if you want, you'd have to convince 90% of your neighbors to join that. There's a really high bar. It's a completely different process. And so if you were interested in that, you're probably better off to just do a non-member membership there. Because I think getting 90% of your neighbors to agree to a new tax is a really high hurdle, probably not gonna happen. So I wanted to clarify that. So our format tonight is the presentations by the city manager and then the police chief. And then there's a small number of us, but I would like to hold all questions until after the presentation, because we've designed the presentations to give you as much information as possible. And then we will spend as much time answering questions as is needed until 7:20 or earlier if we get all the questions answered. And the last 10 minutes of our meeting tonight, we'll return the time to Tim. And if I have to see a lot of head nods and you're interested in annexation, we at least want to tell you what that process looks like. And then we'll end the evening with that. I will continue to be available to you to answer questions by email, phone, text. This is my district, District 2, and so I would be happy to serve as a liaison. In fact, that is the motive for me serving. I am not a politician. I have no desire to be. I just want to be here to be a facilitator, to make things just a little bit better for the residents who live here. And I love living in Cottonwood Heights. Every time I fly in over those mountains, I think we are so lucky to live here. And so I wanted to be able to be instrumental in preserving this amazing mountain suburban lifestyle that I have grown to love. Mark and I have lived in 5 states, and we've settled here for a reason. It's just a great place to live. So with that, I'll turn the time over to Tim.
It's great to see all of you here, and thanks for taking some time, and we're grateful for the opportunity to talk to you about some of these issues. I want to be clear on a couple of things related to this. There is an annexation petition that the city is in process of considering for the Tabachi development. This is a District 2 Town Hall meeting. We are not really talking about the Tabachi annexation tonight. It's not something that we're going to address. This is mainly, as Councilmember Hyland has mentioned, related to the unincorporated areas that are these island areas within municipality boundaries. So I'll explain that a little bit. So we're not really going to talk about that. The City Council is still deliberating on that. It will be scheduled for a decision sometime in the upcoming months. We don't have a definite time frame. The applicant is also, for Tabachi, is also going through a county subdivision modification process. They're moving through that process, and so some of the delay is letting them get through that process rather than starting something with us as well, or continuing to go through the annexation process. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So as Councilmember Hyland mentioned, and this is some of the information, it's House Bill 330 if you're interested in reviewing it. It was just passed this past year. And it's a very long bill. It has a lot of different elements to it, but let me just highlight 3 important ones, and Councilmember Hyland has already mentioned this. It provides for unincorporated islands within the county of the first class. Salt Lake County is a county of the first class, and they are to be automatically annexed to an adjoining municipality. So those unincorporated islands are areas that are surrounded by municipalities completely. Not by unincorporated areas, but municipalities. They're an island within municipality areas. And if an annexation petition is not submitted, then, as has been mentioned, these islands are automatically annexed into the most populous municipality. And this will occur automatically by July 1st of 2027. That, in a nutshell, is what it states in the House bill. There's a number of other different elements. They're more technical elements, but these are the 3 main issues that bill addresses. So if you look at The areas, many of you received mailings, the areas with the stars by them are the unincorporated island areas adjacent to Cottonwood Heights. You can see those right there. I hope you can see right along the southern boundary and then up on the eastern or western boundary as well. I'll just show you these areas. Yes, you probably can't see the streets very well, but you probably all know where we're talking about. Areas east of Highland Drive, and so this is one of those unincorporated boundary, unincorporated island areas. Here's another one, which is near Water Vista Way, that's included in this area, just north of the golf club area, Willow Pond area. And then we've also included this area to the east. It's bounded on Creek Road, and it's 7450 South. It's a cul-de-sac that's there. I do want to mention this area. You received a mailing per the resolution that was passed by both cities of Sandy and Cottonwood Heights back in 2014 that Councilmember Hyland mentioned. This is an area that's designated in that agreement to go to Sandy just because of services. So I just wanted to make sure you understood that. Doesn't mean that a petition can go forward and there could be a process, but that's one thing I wanted to clarify with that. So these are the areas that we're talking about as unincorporated island areas. So if annexation occurs, and if you were interested in Cottonwood Heights, we're going to talk to you about the services that we provide and what it would mean. So first of all, there probably is a question, if annexation occurs even automatically, what happens to your address? Your address, the zip code will not change, and you can change the name of the city if you want. You can go through a process with the U.S. Postal Service to do that. You don't necessarily have to. So right now, if your address is Salt Lake City, that can still stay the same. I'm not sure exactly what it states. But, or you can change that to Cottonwood Heights, but your zip code will not change. So that's one question we sometimes get in annexations. As far as fire, you're likely covered by Unified Fire Authority right now. They provide the services. They also provide, we contract with those services here in Cottonwood Heights, so that would probably be unchanged if you came into Cottonwood Heights. Regarding roads and storm drain systems, if you were annexed into Cottonwood Heights, the city would take over maintenance of public roads and the public storm drain systems. Private roads and private driveways are the responsibility of the property owners. The city would not take those over, but we would provide a variety of services, including snow plowing, street sweeping for public roads, stormwater maintenance. Matt Shipp on the end, our Public Works Director, is responsible for those services, and we work very hard in that area, and I think with the resources that we have, we do a very good job in what we do with the maintenance of these areas. Related to utilities, we don't believe there will be much that would change with the current utilities you have would probably stay the same. If you're in Salt Lake City, water, that would remain the same. We don't see a lot changing with the utilities. If you have pets, there is a pet licensing process that you could go through with the city on a yearly basis. It's a whopping $5 for that license for dogs, cats, ferrets are what's covered in our ordinance. Then related to land use. Now this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, and we'd have to evaluate what happens in an annexation. Is when the annexation occurs, we have to go through a public process that goes through the Planning Commission and also the City Council to adopt areas into land use zoning, which you're probably aware of. We've kind of looked at what the unincorporated Salt Lake County areas are. There's a variety of different residential area designations, R110, those are 10,000 square foot lots, into agricultural, which are much larger lots. We have fairly similar types of zoning, so we would evaluate that and match the zoning if you were annexing the Cottonwood Heights as closely with what zoning ordinances that we have in place in the zoning areas. It would be a public process, so you would definitely be noticed, and we would request that you come to the land use hearings on that, so we would try to match those as close as possible. There may be some differentiations in some of the standards. I don't think they would be huge. If that occurs, once you're annexed and there is a differentiation in standards, you would be grandfathered in those standards. And so it would be fine unless you made major changes to your lots or to your homes or setbacks. And then there's also a non-conforming use process to go through if that's needed. So anyway, a lot of it's on a case-by-case basis, and we can get into specifics more if that occurred as we go through the land use process, but we wanted to outline some of that for you. And then I'm going to turn the time over to Chief Russo to talk about law enforcement here. Just give me a second. Oh, there it is. I'm not finding my phone sheet. Got it.
He had to instruct the boomer how to use the computer. This is Candy Terry, she's my administrative assistant, and she's gonna help me go through this with you. Let me just give you some background. I spent a little over 25 years with the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office before we started up Cotton Heights. And we decided to become a city and start our own police department. I'm telling you that because so altogether, I have 41 years of service. During that time with the Sheriff's Office, it was very easy to provide service to all the unincorporated areas. For instance, I was a deputy chief and I had command of Mill Creek, Holiday, Cottonwood, and the south end of the valley. So I had, 160 officers. We ebbed and flowed, we moved them wherever there was a call for service. It was easy to do, but that's not the paradigm that we live in now. As you know, the Sheriff's Office is separating from UPD, so Rosie's just going to get the Canyons and the jails and civil process, and we're not really sure what else. UPD's going to get Mill Creek and Holiday, Midvale, and Kearns Magna, and we're not sure what that means for you. Currently, we are all dispatched out of the same center. It's called VAC, Valley Emergency Communication Center. So when a call comes in, it all comes into one, called a PSAP, Primary Emergency Answering Point, where all the 911 calls come in. There are two. There's one in Salt Lake City, and then there's one, it's basically in Kearns, so we have redundancy. Salt Lake City dispatches for Sandy, everybody else is dispatched through VAC. If you pull up on their screen, you punch in your addresses, you actually show as a Midvale address in their system. It's because there are no cars assigned to your area. So if there's a call for service, they pull who's ever closest, and that they're right, that may not be Midvale, it may be somebody else. And with the split of UPD, I don't know what that means. So I have some personal motivation here, in that we feel very strongly about making sure that you get police services. Fire, you're pretty good on, because Unified Fire has mutual aid and they move the closest station. You're good there. Police services, I'm not quite as sure about. And I'll go through the presentation, but one of the things we did was I asked the patrol officers, when you're not busy, drive through that area, because I'm not sure they've actually ever seen a police car drive through their neighborhood. So drive through there so they see what a police car looks like in their neighborhood, and they know that when they go to bed at night that there's somebody actually patrolling that area. So let me give you some numbers, and this presentation is going to be kind of an overall city presentation, and I'll go through those parts quickly, and I'll spend a little more time on the area that affects you, and then of course we'll answer questions as we go through this. So Candy can help me if I get stuck. She's always my safety net. So calls for service. And this is for a 30-day period. In that 30-day period, we handled 1,592 calls for service. What that looks like basically is that Conwood Heights Police handles 20,000 calls for service a year. That's a lot of calls. Now, on the bottom part, I think those are on-view cases. Okay, so we have 427 on-view cases in March. Here's the difference. So if you call and say, hey, there's like this suspicious person hanging out at the neighbor's house, I've never seen him before, that's a call for service. We will send cars up to that area. And the on-view cases are the patrol guys are in your neighborhood at night and they think, why is that car idling around the corner and that guy walked in the neighborhood at 2 in the morning looking for open garages? That is an on-view case. So between the two, you can see that for the month of March, that's about 2,000 calls that we did between the two. Okay, and then it looks like we have it broken down by district. And you know, the city is broken down by districts. There are 4 total. Most of your area is in District 2, or all of it that we're talking about is 2. So you can see in District 2, the calls for service there are 262. They're remarkably lower than District 1. Let me tell you what that is, and that's because District 1 has that lower Fort Union area, Union Park. That's where the Home Depot and Target is. Obviously, we're going to get where the retail outlets are. That's where we spend a lot of time. We get calls there all the time, simply because of the type of industry that's there. This is a very important slide to me. We pride ourselves on this. This is what we did from day one. A priority 1 call is where there's life in jeopardy, something very serious, and our total response time. So the dispatch time is 1 minute and 17 seconds. So you call in, you dial 911, I live at, and they'll say, what's the address of your emergency? They ask you that because they punch that in. As they're punching it in, it populates on the computers in their car. It's really a cool system. So the guys will start knowing there's something going on there, and they'll start moving that direction, and then they get the information updates as you are interrogated on the line by the dispatcher. And then our response time to your call is 6 minutes and 59 seconds. We're actually probably even faster than that. I get kudos all the time from people saying, I can't believe it, I saw something and I'm on the phone with 911 and I'm trying to describe the car, and then pretty soon I see headlights coming, another one, and it's the police are already there. It's amazing. Nobody in the valley can come close to that. I'll give you, one of the state representatives called me and she said, hey, I was jogging with my friend down at Liberty Park, and this crazy guy with a 2x4 came after us, and we jumped in our car and we got away, and I dialed 911, and it was Marie Polson, as a matter of fact, and she was great. So Marie drops her friends off, drives all the way home to Cotton Heights, and then she calls back Salt Lake City and says, hey, I just wanted to find out what happened on that call. And they said, well, yeah, it's still in queue, we're gonna get to it. So that's sort of the difference. Now that's Salt Lake City, but I'm here to tell you that you can measure us up against Sandy or Draper or any of the UPD agencies, Taylorsville. No one even is remarkably close to that. We're really proud of that because that's important. And it's important for a lot of reasons, not just for crime, but for medical as well. We get kudos from the fire department all the time because they'll call in and say, my baby's not breathing, or I woke up, someone's choking, or my husband's having a heart attack. And we can get there and start life-saving measures. The fire guys have to get up and get equipped and dressed, get in the truck and go there. We do not. We can beat them there by several minutes, and the brain will start to die in 4 to 6 minutes with lack of oxygen. So we save lives that way. Overdoses, same thing. We were the first. We brought Narcan to Utah. We're really proud of that. If you don't know what Narcan is, with the opioid epidemic, what Narcan does is it's an antidote to any sort of opioids, and we can administer that safely to patients and reverse the effects of an overdose very quickly. So anyway, those are some of the things we do. Response times for priority 2 and 3 calls are 11 minutes and 19 minutes. Now 3 might be something like, oh, I had some property damage or something like that, that's not an emergency, and we can get to it when we can. And that might take 19 minutes, that might sound like a long time to you, but other agencies don't even respond to those calls. They won't respond to accidents. So if you have, someone stole my golf clubs out of my garage, you can go in and they'll say, yeah, just go on to the website, and won't call out any city in particular, but most of them do this. They've offered it to us. It saves resources. It's, it frees up the guys. It does a lot of things. I will never do that. You call the police, you get a police officer at your home. It's important. And we don't just put it on the computer, give you a case number for your insurance company. We work that case, and we solve more of them than you would actually think we do. And so we're proud of that. Anything I'm missing? You can jump in here anytime. Okay, what kind of crimes are we looking at, Councilmember Hyland? You were lucky, you live in one of the safest cities in the state, and certainly in the valley. So look at March, obviously no homicides. We had 1 rape, 1 robbery, 8 assaults, 2 burglaries, 40 thefts, stolen autos of 2, a total of 54 cases. Now, when you see the heat maps, some of them are, we like them and we don't like them. It shows you where these cases are occurring, but it's a little deceptive because it'll show you, oh look, we've got, there's a real hot area, it's all in red. Well, that's a difference of 2 or 3 cases in Cottonwood Heights. It's not like other areas of the valley where you can see a dramatic difference. Here's our arrests. So in March, we made 55 arrests, and those are adult arrests. And Councilmember Brackman asked us to put in juvenile arrests several years ago. Why? Because the kids were always complaining in this youth group that the cops are targeting us, the cops always just pick on the kids. Not true, we arrested 1 that month and 55 adults for various crimes. We have one of the highest solvability rates around, and it would even be higher if we didn't include some of those cases that other agencies don't include. Like again, the stolen golf clubs or a damage to your property. They just don't case those, and they'll put them in the closed file. We actually work those because it's important. It's important to you because it happened to you. And I promise I'll get to you. Okay, traffic citations. The city council, I get a lot of complaints about, hey, I was trying to cross the street and I almost got run over, they yield to me, or they drive up and down my street. It's a racetrack, and snow season. If you've ever been trying to get to your home from Wasatch Boulevard, you'll know when it's a powder day kind of thing. This city council, we were defunded a couple years ago, no surprise, but the city council is pretty good to us, and they've given me back those allocations. So we have a group of 4 officers dedicated to do nothing but traffic enforcement. And they get a lot of DUIs. They don't look for, just because I get this question all the time, are they trying to get me if I'm 4 miles over, or if I creep through a stop sign? No. The ones they get are the reckless drivers, the DUI drivers. And my pet peeve is the no insurance, because for some reason my wife head fakes people and they always rear end her, and it's always that guy who doesn't have insurance. So if you don't have insurance and you're driving around in my city, I'm going to impound your car because you deserve it, because I'm not paying for that anymore. So they do a lot of that. Here's the citations by district. Kind of mirrors where crime goes. As you can see, District 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 is up where Councilmember Burrell is, up in Wasatch Boulevard. We do a lot of enforcement up there as well, but we do it in District 2. And again, they're targeting those people that, and you know who they are. They're the guys that when you're driving home tonight, you're going to say, I wish I had lights and siren, because I would give that guy a ticket, and fortunately we actually have that equipment so we can give that guy a ticket, because they come to our attention. Accidents, were 23 in March, and those are bodies injury.
So
Yes,
Yeah.
we had 3 injury accidents and 23 property damage.
And we separate them out. And that way, why are they higher the previous months? Snow. Yeah, because some people don't know how to drive in the snow and they go too fast and we get a lot more crashes during that time. And more crashes comes more injuries. Animal control and code enforcement. And I'll show more about this, but this is a service that we provide that those guys are like the hardest working guys in the entire department, because something that's near and dear to people is, you know, you work really hard. Last Saturday with the weather, I was in my yard and I was turning over the flower beds and planting flowers and doing everything, and there's always those guys in your neighborhood, you know who that, I'm talking about, the weeds this high and the car parked on the front lawn, even in the nice neighborhoods, you know, and then, you know, the animals are out of control or they're doing whatever, but those guys handle those kind of calls, and I'm not really sure that you get that kind of response or service now, but again, I'm selling a product, so I'm telling you the good things. The traffic unit we isolated out separately, correct?
Yes, traffic is separated out.
So those 4 guys that I told you about, I still have people say, you're not doing enough, you should be doing more. I saw this today. We can't be everywhere, we tried, but I get a lot more people saying, you know what, I was driving and I saw them in the school zones and they were pulling people over and, you know, who didn't yield, and I've seen them pulling over those guys, and that one guy always drives down the street, he finally got stopped, so thank you for that. So the citations for March were, these are 4 guys, 349 citations, and then they made 238 stops. They impounded 19 cars, most of which didn't have insurance. And they got 6 DUIs. That's in a month. And you know, remarkably, not all the DUIs, you know, when you think of that, back in the day when I was doing them, and it was the 2 o'clock in the morning drunk coming home. I walk by today, every day I come in and I stroll in and they've got somebody there at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning who they've stopped because they've crashed into something or they pulled them over for impaired driving. And do you know, and help me make sure I get the statistic right, do you know that 60% of them aren't alcohol related? They're drug related and prescription related. It's that opioids again. And so, yes, so we actually take their blood and that's how we determine an impairment. So here's what you get. Do you like my picture? So the services we provide are proactive patrol. I don't go through this. I hope I'm not taking too much time. The selective traffic enforcement, community engagement, I'll go through that. Mental health services, which is really important to us and me personally. The fastest response time in Salt Lake County. Highest crime clearances. We'll be at a case doing a search warrant and someone will call in. We did this the other day. I think it was they were doing a search warrant on a fugitive and somebody called in and it's like, I'll send this in for my insurance. I know they're not gonna find them, but somebody got in my garage and took my golf clubs and stuff. He looks down and he sees the complete, because it forwards to our phones. And he's there, he's like, looks in the corner and said, and there's this stuff right there. So we called the guy within 5 minutes, said, yeah, we got your stuff. So it's really cool that we're able to do that. We're really proud of that. And you don't hear about that. Emergency management, we'll get to that too. Really important. And we do it a little differently than other people do. And then a voice in the community. Do you know who your representative is where you live? Bet you don't. This is your representative. And this is your representative. And I'm the police representative, and there's your public works guy, so you know who to call if you have a problem. It's nice to have the FaceTime and being able to call someone. The DUI prevention, I told you we do 100 arrests a year. This is why. These are cases from just this last few months. The top one is a DUI who crashed into another car, middle of the day, and then his car blew up. The other one, the bottom one, is a sad story. She's a first generation immigrant, put herself through school. She's a nurse, very skilled. She's working at the University of Utah in trauma care and providing services. She gets off her shift. She exits 2:15, and here comes some guy in a landscape truck, company truck, with a whole bunch of fentanyl in his pocket and a whole bunch more in his system. And he goes off the embankment, lands on top of her car. There's this much distance. You can't even see her in that car. And they're talking to her, trying to keep her calm. We could not extricate her from the car. We had to bring in a lift, a crane, right? And that physically lift that off her and get her to the hospital. She spent months there. She's alive. She'll never be the same. Her life has changed dramatically. She broke almost every bone in her body. But we were able to get to her and but you know what? Can't have that. The deal is we need to get those, and that's so hard to measure. We get the DUIs, you don't know what you prevented, but I know I haven't knocked on as many doors, and that's a hard thing to do, is knock on someone's door and say, may I come in and will you sit down? They know why I'm there. And I remember everyone I've ever done. Mental illness. I'm gonna play one tape and tell you about the other one. Help me with this, Candy, so I do this right. Is this, I'll let you do it, because she's a millennial and I'm still the boomer, remember? So, and just listen to this. This is a Common Heights case.
Mom.
This lady lived in Common Heights. She was sleeping in the driveway in the middle of winter. You know, that type of behavior. Didn't even know her own son. Who do you call? Where do you put her? Do you take her to jail? Where do you take her? You don't take her to jail. She doesn't belong in jail. She didn't do anything wrong. That's the wrong thing to do. The other kid down here is another kid that we dealt with a lot. You see, he has a little Nerf gun in his hand there. They didn't know what it was. They got a call, a suspicious guy coming gun at cars. He had it in the front of his pants. When the officers pull up, I don't have that video, I don't think, but when you see it, the officers confront him. He turns, raises, and pulls that. You know, when they see this motion, that is a bad thing to do to the police, and it usually ends up very, very badly. I sit on a mental health committee, and what we were able to do with in this particular case was, in fact, both of them, is we worked with Representative Ellison. I got her to the Huntsman Mental Health Center. She's now doing well. We train our officers in how to deal with them, how to approach them. In fact, we are able to identify these people in the community and try to get with the social workers and the service providers and provide services to them before it gets to a crisis level and it turns out really badly. And we changed our policy. We're actually the first in the valley to do this. We used to actually call the ambulance. They have to go to the emergency room, and then they get admitted if we have to pink sheet them. We don't do that anymore. You know why? Because if you have an emergency and you go to the emergency room, you got this person ahead of you who doesn't need to be there. It's just there's no emergency. If there's an emergency, if they swallow dope or they have an injury to them, we're good with that. We will take them there. But a lot of times it's just a procedural thing where now it's a medical issue that the ambulance takes. That takes the ambulance out of service. It occupies the emergency rooms, keeps you and your families from getting the care. Takes the ambulance out of service, takes my officers out of service. So now we're opening up a new center, and it'll be across from the jail. It should be open in December, and then we can take the people there within 20 minutes. We're in, we're out, and we can start providing services to them immediately. Okay, I'll skip that. Let me tell you about some of our staff. We're very picky about who we recruit here. We pay pretty well, and we give them great equipment. This is Erin. Erin's one of my officers. She was an excellent softball player, and she saw a need across the street from, at Brighton High School, because the boys' sports get a lot of attention, not so much the women's all the time. Oops, I want to go back. Okay, I don't know how to go back. Okay, there she is. So they didn't have a coach for the team, so she stepped up and she took the role and she coached the team, and they're doing very well. But that's just highlighting one of the, a lot of our officers do things like this, and we love them all for that. The community engagement. I actually live out of the city. I actually live on the Murray side. One of the reasons we did that, we talked about me living in the city. That's hard to do as a police chief, because then you go on people's personal issues, all their family issues, and you see them at church or in the grocery store, it's awkward, right? So it is, but we have neighborhood parties and stuff. I've never seen one of the elected representatives or Murray Police or anybody in any of ours. We go to everyone that's in our community. They tell us when they are, We look forward to them. The mayor's showing up, he's giving a speech, this is one of the 4th of July ones, but we do them all the time. And it's important to be there, because you have to have that relationship with the community. We are only effective as a police department if we have the support of the community. That's Sir Robert Peel, who's a father of modern law enforcement. DARE, we teach DARE in our schools, including the school in your neighborhood that, Oakdale, that's the one. Yes, so Oakdale, we had the same issue. And Oakdale asked to be annexed into Common Heights, so we started providing the DARE service, and we provide service to their neighborhoods. One of the other things you see here is an autism barbecue that we do every year, very important to us. We have to service that community, and what we do is, the legislature said we have to train. And it's great, have people come in and we have somebody come in and talk to them. That's one way to do it, and we do that, but we take it a step further. Other cities try to model us. We bring the barbecues out, the fire trucks, and we bring games, and we have the director of the Autism Foundation. She comes along with the service providers, the parents and the kids. They all come in this room, and we cook for them, we feed them, and we get a relationship with them, and we flag the aggressed. So we know before it comes up on the computer, so we know that we're going to a house, and we know what the issues are that we'll be dealing with. This is emergency management. I talked to you a little bit about this before. Different models, Salt Lake County and Unified and some of the other cities use a model that is regional. So if you have a problem, then they can move resources from, around. Ours is very different. We have an emergency manager who's assigned to the city. We take care of the problems within our city. We collaborate with Salt Lake County and the state. We do that very well. But for instance, last year, this is what you're seeing, the sandbag filling, because, we have some real problems up here sometimes, and we had some real potential for flooding. And I remember Salt Lake City, they were boasting, they're 10 times my size. We filled 10,000 sandbags. Good for you, I did 100,000. But the reason we keep it in-house is what I don't want is no quicker somebody saying, hey, we need them, and somebody coming and getting pallets of my sandbags that we filled and moving them over there. They're here for us, and they're here for your use. That's why we've adopted that model. Animal control, I told you a little bit about that before, and code enforcement. Have you seen some of this in your areas? Because after I cleared out Rio Grande, they pushed them all out to the burbs, and we get them all. We called it Operation Leaf Blower. They took all those homeless people with the leaf blower, and they get out. It's not just Salt Lake City's problem, and they moved them to our cities. And so these are actually compromised cases. I wouldn't be surprised if you've seen some of them in your areas. Overnight camping is illegal. If it's cold, we offer them shelter. We do our best to accommodate them, but we don't allow trash and the drugs and stuff in our city. And if they're there, they're probably around at night looking for something to do that's nefarious. So these guys go, they try to find some help. If they can't, they cite them, and we work with UDOT and clear out the area and clean up the encampments. You don't see many of them here. If you do, you tell me in a day or two it'll be gone. Investigations. I've already touched a little bit on this, that we do not just take calls on the computer. We come to every call. Everything's important. The little things. You know what else is important? The big things, the suicides, homicides, things like that. Most cities do a good job on the homicides. Suicides, they'll come and do the quick investigation. They leave. Let me give you an example of the difference. I had a suicide that was two couples went out. One, he didn't want to go. He stayed at home. He was kind of fighting with his wife. So she went with the other couple. They went out for dinner, came home. He went out in the garage and left door on the front door. Don't come in the garage, call the police. So they did. We found him. He shot himself in the head, and he was dead. And so yeah, we conducted an investigation, and we did everything we were supposed to do. And we do that very thoroughly, because what you don't want, and sometimes we take longer than people would like, because it's really that is the worst day of their life. And I'll tell you, just from our perspective, the officers have a saying here that says that it is a gift to them to be that person to provide service to people on the worst day of their life. And to highlight that, I lost track of a couple of the guys for a while. I didn't know where they were. They went down to Smith's, they bought some Clorox, some rags, and different things. They went out in the garage and they cleaned it all up after the body was gone. I said, what did you do? And they said, boss, we're gonna leave that for her. And normally they'll have to call you to disaster cleanup or do something. We didn't do that. Those guys got garbage bags and cleaned everything up because they just couldn't do that. And it was hard enough for her. They weren't gonna leave her with that. And so that's just one example of things we do, and I'm really proud of that. Let's see. Okay, is heat map property crimes throughout, is this District 1?
No.
All of them? Okay, well, I'll skip over that because it'll take you too long. This is District 1, which is below Highland Drive. This is District 2. This is the one you probably want to see. And is that big enough to see there? You probably can. And remember, so these are where the crimes are committed. It's a little deceptive because you'll see the bright red and you'll think, wow, that's a mecca of criminal activity. Keep in mind, the difference is from turning it to blue is 1 or 2 cases. It's not a lot, but you live in a very safe area. That's what District 3 looks like. It's pretty even throughout the city. They're pretty good at proactive. They take it personally. If they get calls in day shift that someone's been burglarized or there's been some car vehicles and they missed it, they take it personally. Here's something that we offer too, before I get to citations. The reason we don't just close out those cases is we have some new technology. If you spend a little time, and we have that ability to spend time on those cases, for instance, you say, you know what, someone broke into my car, my neighbor had a ring camera, I don't know who it was, I'm so frustrated, they smashed my window, they did more damage than they got, took a change on my thing, and they took my purse and my laptop, who's gonna catch that? Well, I'll tell you what happens is, you look at the ring camera and you see, oh look, there's a blue F-150. How many of them? Those are around. Well, here's the trick, we have these cameras around, and they're license plate readers. So we go through and we can actually see how many 150s went through that neighborhood, and that narrows it down. And then it reads the license plate numbers, and we're actually able to solve some of those crimes with those license plate readers. How cool is that? And actually, we found one that did it, and we started following him. He ended up in California, right? You could see him. He was hitting the cameras on the way down to California. So, okay, all citations issued exactly where you'd expect them to see. It might be hard to see there, but those are the main thoroughfares. Down in the bright red on the left, you'll see, the Target areas, Home Depots, that kind of thing. Fort Union, Union Park, Highland Drive, Wasatch, Bengal, those kind of things. That's where you'll see the traffic citations. Heat map for calls for service at District 2, again. Is that? Yeah, that's just the district that we're talking about. So you'll see where our calls for service are.
That makes it look worse than it is.
It really does. That's what we people like the heat maps. They like to see them. We hate to put them on there because it's like, oh my gosh, there are 4 of them, Yeah. And then I told you about your voice in the community. You have a great mayor and council, and you have a council member that represents you very well. At least you have a point of contact to help your problems. And questions we'll get to as soon as they tell me we do. So, please, sorry.
Okay, so just a few more slides and then we'll get into the question and answer. So as far as the city, as has been mentioned, it's divided into 4 districts. So districts 1, 2, 3, and 4, our Mayor Wickers is elected citywide, and then each of the council members are elected by district. They're 4-year terms. The next election in 2025, there are 3 individuals that will be, or seats. It's the mayor, and then districts 3 and 4 that will be the next elected area or offices. And then state elected offices should not change with this boundary change. As far as volunteerism, there's a lot of great opportunities. We have a number of different boards and commissions and advisory committees. We have an architectural review committee, arts council, which is very active. There are a lot of, we do plays. In fact, Beauty and the Beast is coming up this summer, and they do a great job. In fact, they're probably, I don't want you stepping in, but they're doing rehearsals right now on that. We have a historic committee that's very active, just received a state award for some of the services that they're providing. They are amazing in what they do. Parks, Trails, and Open Space Committee, Arts Council I mentioned, and then Planning Commission. There's opportunities to volunteer. We just had our volunteer dinner a few weeks ago, and amazing residents in what they do to serve the community, and there's a lot of opportunities for that. You can also attend city council meetings. We hold city council meetings on the first and third Tuesdays of each month. That includes a work session that starts at 4, and then a business meeting that starts at 7. So one of the last things we'll talk about, and this is a complicated matter. I could probably take the next 3 hours talking about property taxes and what that means. I appreciate Dave Muir. He's our city treasurer. He's sitting back here in the back. He's done some analysis on this and really knows the subject better than anyone that I'm aware of. And so he has done some work on this. I also want to recognize Tiffany Jansen, who's in the back here as well. She really helped organize a lot of things with this this meeting. So basically, Cottonwood Heights, if you look at property taxes right now compared to Salt Lake County, if you were annexed into Cottonwood Heights, you would pay around $84 less than the current Salt Lake County services. That is taxes that we're talking about. The cost of municipal services for Cottonwood Heights is, this is just for taxes, $10.25 per month more than Sandy. So we're right in the same range as Sandy. One of the things that we have not done is done a deep analysis of what fees are. We try to focus on having less fees. In fact, there's several fees that we have not implemented as a city. We're one of only 2 for a telecom tax that is not implemented in Salt Lake County. Most other cities in the county have. And then a deep dive on the fees associated with a lot of the different services. I know that there is a fee related to street lighting that Sandy has that we do not. And so we've tried to, over time, limit the number of fees, but we haven't done a deep analysis on that. But in general, we're very comparable in what the savings would be if you go from Salt Lake County unincorporated areas to and to the other areas. Dave, did you want to say something?
I think you misspoke, or at least just, you said Cottonwood Heights is $83 less than the county. It's $833.
Yeah, per month.
So,
Yeah,
okay,
it's per month. Yeah, per
There wasn't
month is
that.
what we're talking about. Yeah, it's if you take the whole year, it's a lot different than that. And then it's in the same realm. We're pretty close with the Sandy side of things. So if you want to talk a little bit more about that, and like I say, we haven't done a deep dive on the fees and things such as that, but we have more minimal fees in general, I believe, than Sandy and other areas. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Hyland and go into questions.
Yeah, I know you came here for the dollar analysis. What are we kidding? I have learned, I've only been in office for 4 months, but I have learned that cities play games with fees. So Riverton City will say, we have the lowest property taxes in the county. Well, they also have astronomical fees. So that's why we wanted to kind of give you that disclaimer that we just recently had a discussion, and the council just did not have an appetite to increase fees because it's death by 1,000 cuts. And I said, if you add another fee, it will never go away. So I'd rather have you see it in your property taxes than just fee you to death. So with that, we've given you a ton of information. What questions do you have? We'll just pass the microphone, or I think we're a small enough group, you could just stand up and ask your question.
I didn't realize this was just about annexation, but I saw 3 sections on that map. I think it shows that initially, that lower one isn't gonna be in District 2, is it?
3.
There were 3 sections?
Oh,
in
yes,
your-
that one is adjacent to District One, the area that you put up on the map. Yeah, that was a good question.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and we included them, but we knew that there was kind of this already disagreement with Sandy, that's probably where they would go.
Okay.
So that star you see up there on the left, that would be District One. Yeah, yes.
Do you do neighborhood cleanups? I know like the county used to, would drop off dumpsters in the neighborhood. Our neighbors at Sandy City, they're able to leave trash out twice a year and it comes.
That's a really good question. I just talked to this Sandy council on Saturday night, a couple of the council members there, and Sandy does have, like, you put anything you want out on the curb at a certain point, and then they just come pick it up. They are going to impose a fee for that, so that's no longer going to be, or at least if it goes through, that's not gonna be free. The waste, it's Wasatch Front waste, and they used to do the neighborhood cleanup. Now they have gone, and that's not, by the way, that's no longer county or city. Wasatch Waste used to be part of the county and they separated. And so now you have to request those. And there's a minimal fee, isn't there, for, as far as you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
I wanna say $35 or something, it's really cheap. Oh,
That service would be the same if you're in Cottonwood Heights, because Wasatch Front does the unincorporated county and Cottonwood Heights. The ones you request
okay.
every year,
The
there
ones
isn't
you
a fee.
request would be the same process. But as far as coming around anymore, Wasatch Front doesn't do that for any city.
That's been the same since COVID, they stopped dropping them regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can also just FYI, if you didn't know this, you can get a green waste trailer, and I think those are even less. But you gotta sign up for those well in advance, because they're in hot demand. What other questions you have? Yes, Kellen?
What is the annexation process? And is it a vote? You mentioned petition, how does all of that work?
So at the end of our Q&A, I'm gonna turn it back to Tim, he's gonna take the last 10 minutes of our meeting and tell you what that process is. It was just my thought process that if you weren't excited already about joining Cottonwood Heights, that we might not get to that, but we wanna tell you about that annexation process because it is citizen driven. I mean, the path of least resistance, the legislature gave you a path of least resistance just to go into Sandy City. But it would require some action to join Cottonwood Heights. Yes? Oh, I'm sorry.
Would the zoning stay the same, like right now we're agricultural zone?
Yeah,
Is
so
that gonna limit
whether,
what we can do?
do you wanna answer that? You wanna take the mic and answer that?
Yeah, so our ordinances we can mirror fairly closely to county ordinances, but they're not the same ordinances. So what we would do is look at the areas, I mentioned, go through a process where we'd look at the zoning designation and we try to match that as closely with what is already in place. But it wouldn't be exactly the same because our ordinances are different than Salt Lake County's. But we try to get it fairly close with, and there are agricultural zones that we have in the city. In fact, I have this slide that mentions it. So we have comparable city zoning. It's called rural residential, which is similar to the agricultural, and we would try to match that as closely as possible. It wouldn't be exact. There may be some elements that would be different. That would be non-conforming, meaning it doesn't change unless you want to change your use or change something on your property, then you'd have to go through a process for that. But in general, you'd be fine keeping what you have as grandfathered in if there are any differences in that. But we really want to try to match them as closely as possible. And all of this is through a public hearing process. So you would definitely be involved, you would be noticed if you're being annexed in through that process.
I wanna mention that that's gonna happen to you whether you join Cottonwood Heights or Sandy. That same zoning, the mapping of what's called agricultural in the county would be something else in Sandy, like it would be something else in Cottonwood Heights. Yes, the jacket, and then I'll.
Can you look at the map again, please?
Sure.
The one with the stars on it. Yeah, that one, thanks. So we're in the right star. Is this an all or nothing? Everybody has to uniformly agree that
cover that more at the end, but just a general answer, when it comes to, House Bill 330, that whole area will go into the most populous city unless there's a petition prior to that, and I'll go through that petition process for a lot of it's, if you wanted to just have a portion of it, there is a process where you would get signatures and I'll go through that at the end, but.
Our resolution really, with Sandy, says we wanna try to avoid that. So, well, you've already heard my pitch. I wanna get things done on Creek Road. And the more municipalities we have, the harder that is to do. So there's a little bit of area that we still would be sandy there on Creek Road, but that just means that they have less to agree to and we have more control. I saw more hands. Yes.
What about snow removal? Like, I'm in that first star, down the very
Let's give-
end, and sometimes the county is really slow to get there. Is it the same service, do you contract, like?
Yes, I want you to talk about snow
It's not as exciting as the police stories, so. As far as snow removal goes, right now, Cottonwood Heights, although Creek Road, complete Creek Road is not ours, it's split by county, Sandy and Cottonwood Heights. So you get to Pepper's Hill, which we call Pepper's Hill, where we take over the whole road. Right now, we plow all of Creek Road. We're first on site, so we don't lift our plows to prove our point that we don't own it, right? So we plow through there. We do maintain the curb and gutter along Creek Road on both sides. We do the tree trimming, so all of that goes on. Now, as far as snow plowing is concerned, really briefly, the way we have it set up right now, we're broken up into 8 areas for our snow plows. Each area is assigned a plow. Those trucks will go out and they have one area and they focus on their area. Our policy is, and I should back that up, we also have 4 other trucks who are assigned to main roads. Highland, Creek Road, 27, Fort Union. That's all they do, is those 4 trucks will do those main roads so that we can get in and out. Our policy in Cottonwood Heights Public Works is this: we go out when it starts snowing. We don't wait for a certain volume of, certain inches of snow to hit the ground before we go out. We are on the roads when it starts so that we're salting and we're trying to beat the ice and whatnot. Our other policy is this: we will hit every road in the city within 24 hours of a storm ending. What that means is somebody, though, is always last when it comes to snow plowing. I can't have a truck on every street. We know that. It seems odd to have to say that, but I get that call at least 20 times in the winter a day. So we do, but our policy is when it stops snowing, we hit every road in the city. One time we'll go through, salt, get it done. The next day, we're out cleaning up. So we're cleaning our roads. Within 2 days of a snowstorm ending, we've had to push back, and we usually have black showing on the streets. Now, that's our goal, and we shoot for that every time. So I like to brag a little bit if I can. I know the police chief bragged about his officers. Let me take a minute and brag about my drivers and my employees. If you drive around the valley, you know when you've come into Cottonwood Heights. You know when it starts, because that's where the blacktop starts, really is what happens. I mean, I am bragging a little bit. Our neighbors have policies that they don't go into cul-de-sacs. They will stay out of them. They'll just let the ice pack and they'll let it go. And they'll try to get to it when it starts warming up. That's not ours. Our council has given us direction that we will do that. We will make sure all of the roads are clear. Once again though, cul-de-sacs, I hate to say it, but they are on the bottom end of the priority. Main roads, through roads, and then neighborhood streets. But the plow is in the area, plowing those areas the minute the snow starts. So I will say, and maybe Chief or Lieutenant can back this up a little bit, our roads are clean, and we do take pride in that, in our service on snow plowing.
Can you go back to the map with the stars?
City of
on this, I'm in the far right style here. And so you're saying that your plows from Cottonwood Heights go Creek Road, but then all the little side streets, the county is plowing those? That's a question.
In the unincorporated, in
So
the stars.
you do Creek Road,
We
but
do
all the
Creek
plows
Road.
around my street are all county guys.
I would believe so, unless they have an agreement with Sandy to take care of those.
And then you would be taking over those side streets? if
We
you
would be
annexed.
taking over, if you choose to annex into Cottonwood Heights, we would take those over, and they would be assigned to the areas, and obviously we'd have to redo our routes, not a big deal, but we would take those in, and under the same policy, we do the rest of our city streets.
And we're talking public streets, not
Yeah,
private.
public
Right.
roads,
All right,
correct.
thank you.
Two parts. First one is, there could be a situation in which one of the islands chooses to annex and the others do not. That wouldn't be ideal, but that could happen, correct? The second part on snowplow, we have a smaller private lane. Could we get into agreement with the city to plow that street?
The city has made a policy that we don't go on private lanes, and also that we don't contract out for those as the city. It's always been the homeowners association and that take care of it.
And I know your street and I don't think our plows will fit.
Right, it's definitely too narrow.
Maybe this is for the chief. I received from my alarm monitoring company that I'm required to have a license for that. And nobody can give me one because I guess I'm part of Unified. And they don't seem to have an interest in doing that. But is that something that's required here? And if so, is there a cost associated with that?
You saw the permit process, right?
Yes.
So, yes, we have, but it's a really easy process to do. Because we're smaller, you just contact us. We work through your provider and do it. And it's never a problem. I mean, they do that sometimes if you gotta get a business or something who doesn't take care of their alarms and we're there 10 times a night and it's abusing the resources. People, it inadvertently goes off or whatever, or when my kids were younger, they would do that. But no, we don't charge for that and the other thing we do is not everybody responds. We send, the other cities will send a guard from the company or a private entity, and if there's a problem, then they call the police. We actually call alarms, because we should.
So, Chief, I can add to that. For the alarm permits, you actually contact the records office, and we have the alarm permit, and we will send it to you, and you fill it out, you send it back, we send it out to our dispatch, and they enter it so it's in the system.
Yes, ma'am. If I have an at-home business and currently it's through the county, how does that transfer? Do I need to close out the county and then open it with the city? How does that transfer happen?
Yeah, so you would have to go through the same process that the city, and it's very similar with the county. I believe there is not a cost based on state code on that, but you just license with the city. We have a business licensing area that you just go through that process with us.
And it's $0, I have to
I like that concept.
Yeah, it used to cost, and they're like, oh, I'm not getting any services for that, so it's a no cost, but it's easy, and we actually have a full-time employee who helps with our businesses. And we're also a member of the South Valley Chamber of Commerce for supporting businesses.
And
Yeah.
also it's right here. I mean, not some.
Yes.
What is the threshold that has to be met in order to annex? In other words, the varying opinions and among stark areas. That has to be hit.
He's gonna go through that in just a second. I know that's like okay, get to the punchline. We're almost there. Are there any other questions before we get to the punchline? Yes?
This might be specific to our street. There was a hotly and well-attended meeting about a year ago or so for the parks, trails, and open space, we're in that right star again, where some land use showed a trail cutting across everybody's property.
Oh, I
And,
can speak to this, yes.
and
Okay.
We would love to have that off the table.
You know,
Okay. This is a consideration.
So this is one of the reasons I decided to run, was exactly this. You're gonna do what in our neighborhood? Well, it turns out that the state does not allow eminent domain for trails. The state does not allow eminent domain for trails. So that became a non-issue. But at the time, we were like, this is not okay.
Right.
And so the SLEDS ordinances motivated me. That particularly motivated me. Growth is a big deal. I mean, do you know how prime it is where we live? We are 20 minutes from a major airline international hub. We are 20 minutes from 4 world-class ski resorts. We are 20 minutes from a beautiful downtown, and the Olympics are coming. People are figuring out what a prime place this is to live. And so one of my commitments to you, if you decide to join us, is that I'm hawkish on watching what happens to our growth, because I love our mountain suburban lifestyle. And so that's something that you'll get from me. Yes?
Another question for the chief. I noticed when you were looking at citations between Highland Drive and Willow Creek Drive on Creek Road, not one citation was identified in that space. And yet, since I live right there, you could write 40 tickets a day of people who fly up and down Creek Road between Highland Drive.
Pepper's Hill.
So I'm curious, and I know that the road's divided in the middle, and so if they're going east on Creek Road, it's Sandy or somebody else, and it's west is Cottonwood Heights. I'm just curious, I would love to see more. I mean, I see your car sitting in church parking lots, but I don't see them issuing tickets or citations down that road. So whether we be annexed or not, to me, that's a hot button issue.
We just really haven't had many, we haven't gotten complaints in that area.
Can I register a complaint?
We actually just had like a 2-hour meeting on traffic this morning with some other people. Yeah, if you actually go onto our website, right there, there's a link to report crime, and also with crimes traffic. So yeah, you're more than welcome. We'll put out our speed cards, which is usually our first assignment. We get them out, which gives us all the information, tells us when speeders are in the area, what the actual speeds are. Then I can compile the data, and then I use my 4 traffic officers to spread around. I get a lot more spread during the summer months, because during the school year, I'm using the traffic officers a lot in the school years. So the morning traffic is, I don't know if anybody drives in this area during the morning, but it's amazing. So, but if you wanna put that on, if you wanna go onto our website, log that up, we'll get some more speed cards out, and we'll start looking at it.
But you have just illustrated why I want to try to unify us along Creek Road. I really think there's a process problem there that we could solve if you're willing to annex into Cottonwood Heights.
And there's 3 different courts we have to cite into on that road. So if I'm on the south side, I have to cite guys into Sandy's Court. If I'm in an unincorporated area, I have to cite them into Salt Lake County Justice Court. And if I'm in Cottonwood Heights, I have to cite them into Cottonwood Heights Court. So it's a mess.
It's a process
that needs to be cleaned up. Yeah, absolutely.
And another thing I just want to add to that, the council, I wasn't in the council in November I think it was October, they added 3 more officers, traffic enforcement officers. And so that's recent, and that should also improve. So we've got about 3 more minutes for questions, and Heidi.
Along with that, safety is just crosswalks. Is that something?
That is, again, is why I want to unify us. I want to be able to, when I started coming to the council meetings in July. I was serious about this, really wanted to do something, to do some work. And some of the improvements on Creek Road were scheduled for 2050. I thought I could do better than that. And you know what's interesting, we only have Fort Union, Bengal, and Creek that are these major arterials in Cottonwood Heights, east-west. And I think Creek in particular, and this I'm not a big advocate of us cutting our neighborhoods in half. And so it would be something to add to the priority list of getting some of those crosswalks along Creek Road. And I think that would slow the speeds too, because you would have crosswalks that you'd have to be aware of. So that's on my list.
Lighted crosswalks.
Yeah.
The blinking ones.
Yes.
Yeah, just real quick on the speed carts, so like, you have to have a certain number of people, complain before you put them out.
Nope. No, if I get a complaint and it comes through, if I get the information, I just haven't gotten the information, but we put our speed carts out all year long. If I get 1 or 2 complaints, I have no problem. I have 4 of them. I'll get them out and we'll get the area checked.
And those carts will tell us the 85 percentile that measures the times a day and the speeds, and so we get a real good picture, and we're happy to share that information to you once we gather it. Just when you see them out, don't call me and say, oh, you knuckleheads, you didn't even turn it on. It's in stealth mode. We don't actually have it so it registers the speed, because sometimes people will try to see how fast they can go on there, and or some aspiring pitcher will get some rocks or something and see just how fast he can throw his fastball. So we turn them off. They never it's recording the data, then we just download it, and we share that. We do it all the time. So it's very helpful.
All right, I was remiss in telling you the mayor really wanted to be here. He's very supportive, but he was called to DC to do some work there for the city. So I'm gonna turn this to Tim to tell us about the annexation process, and then I'm gonna get you out of here on time. So I will wrap up with just a 2-minute wrap up at the end of his presentation.
So just a note on that question related to the trails along the creek. One of the, that was modified. It was a plan that was being developed citywide to look at future trails. When we say future, that could be 10, 15, 20, 50, 100 years. And if you have trails designated in a plan, if there's a major redevelopment of an area, then trails can be included in a development, and a developer would have to implement that. That's what we were trying to do with the trails, not come in and, like Councilmember Hyland said, that there is no authority to do that. We were just hoping it might be 100 years from now, if redevelopment occurred, a developer would have to do that. So that was some of the rationale for that. But we changed it, we moved it, we recognized it. I received, I don't know how many calls, and they weren't very pleasant phone calls, so. Okay, so as far as the process, this is all defined in state code, and I don't want to get into too much of the weeds on this, but an annexation process is initiated. It begins with Salt Lake County. So Salt Lake County is the organization that receives the information if there is a group that wants to annex. So it starts with Salt Lake County, and after receiving a certificate from the county, the city would receive that there is a petition being looked at, or people have the intent to annex. Then they're provided an annexation petition packet from the city. So we would provide that to you, which details the information on that. You submit the annexation petition signed by a majority of the property owners of real property. So that's designated by whoever wants to petition this in. It's owners of real property. Signatures include joint owners as well. And owner signing must represent at least 1/3 of the value of all property within the area proposed. So it's not just the number of signatures, it's 1/3 of the value of the property, and that's tax value of those properties. You have to designate a contact sponsor, and then have up to 4 signers of the petition that own those properties as well, and indicate the mailing address of each sponsor. Must be accompanied by an accurate recordable map, and that has to be prepared by a licensed surveyor proposed for the annexation. It can include a Mylar, which surveyors can do that through this process. You pay a filing fee, and you're probably going to ask, what is the filing fee? And I don't have that off the top of my head. I've texted someone looks like it's and I just got the text just now, that's what I was texting, it looks like it's $350, let me see. And that's an administration fee as we go through that. If the petition is accepted by the city, the recorder and that acceptance is, we have to do an evaluation to make sure that you're meeting all the state code requirements, that the value of the property, that there's 1/3 of the property owners that have the value, that you're legitimate property owners. If you're submitting, we do an evaluation. If we accept the petition, we arrange for the noticing and go through notifying all the public entities impacted, those that would provide water, sewer, all of those elements. And then we also have to post that on the annexation website of the state. It has to be posted for 3 consecutive weeks. And then there's a protest period where people can protest that. If no valid protests are filed within 30 days after certification, the city council then sets dates for hearing. And they'll do a public hearing on that. If protests are filed, council may deny the petition right there or wait for action from what we call the boundary commission that is outlined in state code. And then after a boundary commission decision, if that's worked out, city council sets hearings, holds public hearings, and then adopts an ordinance annexing the property. There's not really a set timeline on this process, but it has to be in a reasonable amount of time as you go through the different steps. And then once the ordinance is adopted, that's filed with the lieutenant governor and it's recorded at Salt Lake County. A joint process with this, as we get to this part of annexation, if the determination is made, then we have to go through the land use processes as well to determine zoning. But that's after the annexation is completed, then we go through the zoning process as well. And effective date of the annexation, so if annexation, for example, finalized today, hypothetically speaking, effective date is January 1. And so that's why we have the time to January 1, depending on when it's at, to go through our land use processes as well. That's the process.
Can they do one petition for both areas, if they have to vote?
I believe that they can, if they can get all of those into their areas that are islands, I believe they could do it for the whole area. I'd have to verify that for sure, but just in my reading of the code, I think they can do it for the whole area, which includes both areas. Yes, let's go back here and then right here and then right here. Go ahead, yeah.
Am I understanding it correctly then? It's a majority of residents and 1/3 of the total value of the property in the area?
Yeah, majority of the owners of real property, and then at least 1/3 of the value. And we have to go through a pretty intensive process to make sure that that adheres to that code right here.
So, Councilwoman, you've mentioned that there's a resolution between Sandy and Cottonwood Heights to allow the unincorporated islands to have choice. So in this process, can Sandy petition to have the community annexed? Is there an anticipation of a battle between Sandy and Cottonwood Heights, or is the resolution state that the island gets to choose, so to speak?
Yeah, you want me to answer?
Yes.
Go. Yeah, so that resolution designates areas that are to be, if there's an annexation petition, there's an area that says these areas will go into Cottonwood Heights. There's other areas that will definitely go into Sandy, and there's reasonings for that. It's services, access, a variety of things, and then there are areas that says it could go to either. But we're not gonna argue if there's a petition that if some group of people want to come, property owners want to come and petition into Cottonwood Heights, they can do that, or Sandy. We're not gonna argue on that. It's really based on what these individuals want, if that makes sense.
Self-determination.
Yeah.
In that resolution, so it's kind of a gentleman's agreement, that said, we're not gonna argue about these areas, and you're in those areas.
Yeah, I just want, if there were a petition that Sandy would be one of the city would be one of those to argue against in the process that you've outlined, like steps on the next slide.
Not based on the resolution that we have between the cities.
exactly right. So we've agreed in that resolution, we're not going to argue. It's gonna be self-determination in these areas, and they could go either Cottonwood Heights or Sandy. If there's an area that's designated as Cottonwood Heights, and people want to go into Sandy, that's a whole different situation, and we would have to probably have negotiations and conversations with Sandy on that. But that resolution designates the areas where, and then there's an area that they could go either. I had one right here and then one here, yes.
One clarification and one follow-up question. I think you said earlier that the passive result is that Sandy would assume those stars if nothing happens.
Yes, and I'll show you the wording.
Non-municipal, right?
Yeah, the wording is, you'll see the second bullet point. If an this is not directly quoted from state code, but it's basically what it says. If an annexation petition is not submitted, the unincorporated islands automatically are annexed to the municipality with the highest population. That's the key, the highest population.
Because they surround those areas percentage-wise, border-wise, it would go same.
Yeah, so if nothing happens, and we get to July 1st, 2027, these areas that we're talking about will go into Sandy.
So then the fees that we're talking about, the survey fee, which sounds expensive, could be like personal property. I think in the past I've paid $300 to $400 for personal property. Is more or less?
I'm looking at one right now for about $2,000.
Okay, $2,000 for this guy here. So I'm imagining you've got survey fees and then that $350 fee. How would that even be collected among those individuals? Or was that something that if it's a big group of, that Cottonwood Heights might say, look, we'll sponsor that fee if we're gonna end up getting your taxation and your revenue coming our way, and we want you, and we think you want us, and we're willing to, just the logistics alone trying to collect that, it seems like it would be burdensome enough that it, by default, we all end up in Sandy, because we never agree on how that fee is paid.
Great question. Typically cities won't pay for that. That's the process of the petitioners. That'd probably have to be something that would be a policy discussion as well. Dave, did you want to say something?
My comment, because I'm the numbers guy back here, detail guy. Each of you, on average, is gonna save $1,000 a year in property taxes, whether you go Sandy or Cottonwood Heights. So you can keep paying that to stay in the county, or you can petition to go either way and save $1,000 in property taxes every year.
Sure, we're trying to get somebody to write a check and subscribe to that, so when this is a pretty small population in this room, it seems like a really burdensome hurdle to get over to petition to go into Cottonwood Heights.
Yeah. And
Maybe I'm doing that wrong, I'm just.
Yeah, and like I say, it's defined in state code as far as the process and how you do that. We've got one here and then one here, but did you wanna?
I do. That's why I'm here. I think I know how to get the process done. And I'm willing to facilitate it. I'm willing to help you with it. I don't know what that survey costs. I didn't know that was part of the annexation until tonight. But I do think we can get that done. And I'm willing to do what it takes to help you if you want to join Cottonwood Heights.
It's definitely a policy decision because you set precedent on certain things, so that's something that have to be discussed. But in general, outlined in state code, it is the responsibility of the petitioners to address that.
I need you privately. I'm willing to help you figure that out, and I think we can get there.
So we have one right here, and one right here. So go ahead.
So potentially, say someone has begun this petition, potentially we could bust through this and be part of Cottonwood Heights January 1st this next year, or is this like a several years process? Like, what is the timeline of this looking like for real?
So one of my wrap-up comments was like, don't delay. If this is something you want to do, let's get on it.
Yep.
You have 3 years essentially. So if it doesn't happen this year, and we can do it next year potentially, But, if you want the tax savings and some other things, I'm gonna try to sell you on convenience. You're 3 minutes from City Hall. You're right here by the police department. Public Works is right up the way. Sandy's a big city, they could probably offer some things that we can't. But Cottonwood Heights is a place, a community. We're creating a town center. The gravel pit's gonna be redeveloped. And we are placemaking here, and I would love to have you be part of that placemaking. But it's up to you.
And is there anybody who wants to take the ring to do it? Like is there anybody who's started a petition?
No, but the feedback I've gotten from what was sent out is that we wanna join Cottonwood Heights. And so that's why I held this meeting. And, I have people who have said, I'm willing to go door to door with you. And I'm willing to go to neighbors door to door and say, here's a petition, and here's a Venmo account, and I'm gonna keep track of who's contributed. And if we get this petition going, and go to what David said here, is that you're gonna save $1,000 a year. So would you be willing to spend $50, $70 and help us with this process? And if the answer is no, the answer is no. So, yes, Eli.
So this town hall, the gravel pit, how are those being funded? Do we jump into Cottonwood Heights and all of a sudden taxes go up to fund those two major
No,
projects?
it's a remarkable, this is not the meeting to do that, I'm already over time, but, the mayor and Councilmember Burrell went and visited Carmel, Indiana, and they showed them the way to do this. What we want to do is increase the tax dollars that we're getting per acre in those areas, so that in perpetuity, we will be earning $1 million from those properties. And not only will they pay for themselves, they'll pay us back. And it's a remarkable visionary plan, and I'm really excited about it.
As far, you asked the gravel pit too?
Well, just if with the gravel pit and the town hall, how that gets funded, right?
Yeah, the gravel pit is on the north side, that has already been entitled, and you'll start seeing some construction on an 8-phase project. That's being funded by a developer, it's not being funded by the city. So there'll be a tax-based element there. The rest of the gravel pit, which is the majority of that, the owners are looking at redevelopment of that area eventually. We've had many conversations even recently, and you'll be seeing that in upcoming years and public processes on that. Those aren't being funded, at least at this point. There may be some contributions through redevelopment agency funding. That hasn't been completely determined at this point, but those are just some of the things. It's all developer driven because those are private properties.
Our goal with that is to get transit rental tax, there's a hotel, get sales tax from tourists. The world has discovered Cottonwood Heights, so let's take advantage of it. So that's our vision. I wanna let you go, and I want to I'm gonna stay and answer your questions. I do want to end and just tell you that I am willing to help facilitate, like I said. I know there's an HOA over in the Rubidoux Road area, I believe. If you wanna have a neighborhood meeting, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to come to that kind of a HOA meeting. If you wanna have smaller neighborhood meetings, I'm happy to do that because not everybody was here. I'm glad that there are some neighbors who were here, enough that you can go back and say, hey neighbors, we need to get on this. But again, if this isn't for you and the path is to go to Sandy City, that's fine too. We just wanted to give you an opportunity to see what we have to offer and why I personally love Cottonwood Heights. So thank you for coming, and we'll stick around to answer any specific questions that you still might have.
She's really a natural.
That's